Okay, welcome back to the back of the shack. So today we're going to talk about one of my all-time favourite things, and that's coffee pour-over brews, etc. And I'm really pumped because we've got this new thing that we've been waiting for a while. That new pour-over stand. This one's a solid brass. It's beautiful. It's already got a bit of patina. We've got a walnut variant of it there. It's got a lovely glass cone. We've got the organic coffee sock, and we've even got a stainless steel mesh there for a double filtration process. So we're going to talk about all things pour over coffee. And where did it originate from, Jimmy?
Well, this kind of style actually originated in Germany. German mother didn't quite like the way our bio-lady produced coffee, so she managed to get some of her son's blotting paper from school, poke a hole in it, and put it in about a cone shape around her mug, fill it with coffee, and then slowly pour water over it to see if she could try and recreate what all the other coffee makers at the time were trying to do, but with a bit more simplicity and maybe a bit more soul. But she was very excited about the flavour that came out of it. And then after that, she actually patented the design. And from there, it was actually very popular with the European migrants coming to America and the sort of southern hemisphere. And since then, it's grown into quite a large movement that's kind of had a resurgence over the last few years, where people are actually starting to come back to the pour-over method over the espresso method that we see here in Australia. I think it's because you get a bit more tone of the flavour, whereas an espresso, it can often be swept away by the sort of the caffeine and the sort of strength of the coffee, whereas with pour-over, you are forced to concentrate, you're forced to think about the coffee that you've ground, the coffee that you're pouring water through, and how strong you want it to be. And it's also quite meditative, so it's, for me, a win-win.
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit like when you use a camera. If you're a great photographer, you put it in manual setting and you adjust all the levels yourself, and it's the same thing here. Instead of it going into an automatic espresso where it's all calibrated the same, this here gives you an opportunity to experiment and to work out what you need each day. I mean, some days I go a bit slow, I want the more rich depth of the coffee to come through. Some days I'll go in a little bit quicker, so it'll pour over a bit quicker. The thing that I like about this over the, say, the French press, which is also kind of a filter, but not really a filtering process, but the thing I like this about that is that your coffee doesn't actually touch the water and sit in there, which means that you don't get all the, the grungy particulates there. And so sometimes if you want to grind it a bit thicker, you don't actually get that coming through. And if you want to go fine and you want to go slow and you want to get more caffeine through it, you can. So I like the fact that you can adjust it for how you're feeling and also for what time of day you're doing it. I mean, if I do it early up in the morning and, I'm going to have a coffee and I need a shot, I'm going to work on site or, do something, I'll go a bit more caffeine. But if I'm having my first one like now, well, I want to speed it up and have a little bit less caffeine.
And it is the simplest method you can possibly employ. It's just water and gravity. And in some ways, it's the cheapest, depending on what gear you decide to use.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you could just bring hot water with you, you can just do this anywhere. I still like the idea that you grind it specifically just before you pour it, so it has that less of an oxidation process that it's gone through. So I think that that's really important, and you can actually taste the flavour. Powdered coffee, I just can't, like pre-ground coffee that's been sitting in shelves for days. You could definitely taste the difference. The other interesting thing about this, and there's been a lot of studies on coffee in general terms, and for every study that shows that it's been problematic, you've got a study that says that it's fantastic for you. Now, we do know it's got polyphenols in it, so this very rich antioxidant, which is very good for you. So it does have a lot of great antioxidant benefits. But there's also been, discussions, and especially around Starbucks with the acrylamides and things like that. So it's not conclusive, because all the problems that acrylamides are meant to do within a coffee seems to be negated by some of the studies that show that coffee is actually good for heart disease and cancers and different cancers and things like that, which is interesting. But then there's studies that show that it's not. So it's one of those ones you're going to have to feel it yourself, and you're going to have to work out what the best way to do it. I mean, a filtered coffee process like a pour-over coffee process, which either has, we've got the organic sock here, but it can either have that or it can have the paper, and we don't like to use bleach paper, we get the unbleached paper. So that traps the oily substance known as adterpenes, and the two main ones in coffees are caffeistol and carriol, or something like that.
Carriol, yeah.
Carriol. So they're the two main ones that it traps and it stops it from going through. Now they're the ones that have been shown to maybe potentially be a bit problematic with cholesterol and a few other bits and pieces. So, you know, again, you're going to get the health antioxidant benefit of it without some of the problems. And if you go through a richer roast, ironically, that has less acrylamides, which was seen as the problems, than a lighter roast. It seems to only happen in the first part of the roasting, and then it seems to decrease as it goes on. So really a nice rich bean in here that's poured over with a really lovely organic sock or paper that takes in and traps the oils, I think is a very healthy way to go. And the fact that that's not in contact with the coffee as well, then all the big particles don't go, and then you just get a much more smoother coffee that you can just adjust on a day-to-day basis. But the real benefit of it, forget about all that, because, you know, we know with these health things there'll be studies here and there, so you've got to use your own intuition there. But the real benefit of it is the ritual of it. That's what we need to talk about today.
It does force you to slow your day. You know, a lot of people go out, they get their takeaway, they rush their coffee down their throats, and then they go on to their job or whatever their tasks need to be that morning. But I feel with this, it does force you to look and listen and sort of feel the coffee that you're drinking.
Yeah, it's a mindful exercise, because you have the opportunity, as we said before, and as you've just said, to really recalibrate it on a day-to-day basis, a bit slower, a bit faster, a bit thicker, a bit more grind, a bit less grind, and even the way you change the beans. But then the other added amazing benefit is when you're socialising with it, it seems to be a little bit of theatre. I mean, the act of, and of course we make it with a brew. The brew we've made today has got, I've done a heavy ghee one today.
Yeah, I
pick that up straight up. Yeah. So today has that. We've got the lion's mane. It's still early in the day, but I know I've got a meeting with some clients later this afternoon, so I want to be performing at a very high level right up to midnight. Not that meeting will go to there, but I've got a feeling I'll be working up to midnight. So the lion's mane is going to help me. The MCT oil in here will help me as well. So I do make it an added brew. We've got the ghee as well. It's going to slow the absorption of it all down. So happy days.
Yeah, I guess with the perfect cup of coffee, you know, the science, you know, behind it, the answer seems to be it depends. But the least we can do is make sure that we use our intuition.
Ultimately, as I've always said, the best scientist to know what's right for you is yourself, and the best laboratory is your own body that you carry around with you all the time. So if you can just be mindful, tune in, recalibrate, retweak it, see if you're still up at 4 o'clock in the morning with the jitters, then you have to readjust it.
And only organic coffee and non-bleached filtering paper.
Organic coffee is a must, fair trade, organic coffee, non-bleached filtered paper, and beautiful ritualistic pour-over equipment. What we would really love to hear is how you make your cup of morning brew. Do you have a pour-over? Do you have a particular pour-over that you really like? What additions have you put into it? What time do you have it? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? What's your favourite beans? What kind of roast? We'd love to hear from you, and so then you can share it with the Shack Tribe. Now you can share it as a comment on this or tag us in your posts. Thank you.